This was a stump that was about 2 or 3 feet tall, and it's all rotted away and punky. It's all soaking wet from the rain we just had, and it had these old branches sticking out of it. You can just rip those branches out, and they're still nice and solid, and there's a lot of fat wood right in there. And at the very core of this is a lot of good fat wood too. Even though this pine stump was about 1 foot in diameter, it's all rotted away except for the very core, which is maybe 2 or 3 inches in diameter. But I'm not going to go through the trouble of getting down to all that nice solid fat wood. I'm just going to rip out a couple branches and I can get the same effect with that. And these branches tear out pretty easy. Once I get them out, I just shave off and knock off all the dead punky wood, and I'm left with a good solid piece of fat wood from about here on down to the core of the tree. This is the branch that was sticking out of the tree, and this is where it attached to the trunk of the tree. The further out you get, the less fat wood there is, the less resin there is. But you can see just how punky this wood is. There's actually a little bit in that piece. What I'll do is just trim that down, get rid of all that punky wood. This sort of shows the stages of that until I get to something like this that has no punky wood left on it. And it'll be nice and dry inside even though it's been raining. Just trying to make me a little space to work here. When you start tearing into these stumps too, you'll notice a real strong pine smell, kind of like pine sol or whatever, and that might be a cue that you got a good stump. A lot of the stumps are just rotted away, but once you start cutting into it, it'll be nice and solid, and it's almost got like a very hard, waxy consistency to it. And you can see it lights right up. You don't even have to make those shavings too fine, but it does help, you know, if you got some really fine shavings. This will just burn and burn. But it's good stuff. It's probably the best thing I could think of if you're in a situation where it's been raining a lot and everything's soaking wet. I mean, the ground here is kind of dry, but most of the other spots I've been, everything's just soaking wet, and all the twigs are really damp. They're full of moisture because of the humidity and rain we've had. We've had 2 days of pretty much non-stop rain, where I think we've received, I would guess, at least 2 inches of rain. And even though these old pine stumps are soaked to the gills with water, you can dig down in them and find that fat wood that doesn't absorb water and will light right up for you. And if you do a real good job and you shave the whole length of this and make a nice feather stick, that'll actually burn like a little torch or a candle for you if you need some light. It puts off a lot of black soot, so it's not something you want to be breathing in, I don't think. And it's not something I would be using inside of a shelter. But that's generally a good sign. Most of the wood you find as you're burning them, if you notice it's putting off a lot of black soot, that's a possible candidate for wet weather fire starting. There's some shrubs around here that'll work just like that. Not as good as that, but they will work fairly well. You'll have to shave them a little finer, and you'll have to get rid of the outer wet bark. But the interior wood has some type of resin in it, and it'll burn pretty good for you. That just went out. But that would have burned long enough for me to get a fire started. Actually, if I was doing a fire, I would have made a whole bunch of shavings and probably split these up a little bit to make some small sticks with them as well. And once I got that lit, I would have piled some small damp twigs on top of that, and by the time this quit burning, those damp sticks would be dried out and they would be burning, and then I could put some larger branches on there. But if you don't have birch bark, I'd say this is just as good an alternative. It takes a spark real quick with the fire steel, and it burns just about like birch bark does. So there's just another option for wet weather fire starting.